Microsoft Word 2003 Collaboration Part 1. Here in this first of two videos, we're going to kind of journey back in your mind to the days of kindergarten and school where you had to work together, share together, have a good time with your classmates, maybe take a nap. Well, maybe not that, but you definitely did have to do research projects together. And how do you collaborate? Well, let's start off with a couple of things here in this video. All right, hang on tight as we roll through this video and take a look at how we can use track changes, simultaneous editing, how we deliver our shared documents via email or utilizing another program like PowerPoint, and how to protect your shared document. Do you really want to let everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or Harriet, come in and edit your document? And what kind of changes can they make? Most of the time when we're doing collaboration, it's because we are trying to produce a document or a book or a report, and it requires other people to either input information or you want to make sure that the information you've inputted is correct. For example, if I'm doing this history of instruments document, and here's one of my sub-documents, modern times, and well, obviously there's certain experts in our Acme Instruments group that are only concerned with modern times. And so what I can do is have those people take a look at it and say, hey, this isn't right, or you might want to do this, or this doesn't work. Or ultimately, you might send the whole document off to somebody to say, hey, how is my grammar? How's my sentence structure? As an author, I've written books for Cisco and Microsoft and written things in project management. And anytime I do, I typically have an editor. I have a couple. I have a technical editor and I have a regular editor. And they go in and they make changes and then they say, hey, this is what I want to do. And you can either accept or reject the changes. Now, how do you do that? Well, the first thing that we'll need to do in our subdocument here is turn on the track changes. So what I'm going to do is come up here to Tools and hit track changes. Now, if you don't see it because of, you haven't used it a lot, just remember, click the expand down and then you'll see it under the tools. So I click track changes. Two things happen. One, I just turned on track changes. The second is you can see I've got my toolbar here for my reviewing. So I can do final showing of markup. I can do the original showing markup and original. I can change that. I can show the comments, the ink annotations, insert and deletions, formatting, who the reviewers are, balloons, reviewing pane, and other options right there. And here is where I can move between any changes that were made on the document. I can go to previous ones, next ones. I can then either accept the change or reject the change or delete the comment, whatever I need to do. Here's where I insert a comment. Here's the highlighting that I can use if I want to highlight certain text and then make a comment about it. And I can change the colors, obviously. And here's where I can turn track changes on or off. And then finally, here's the reviewing pane, which I'll show you what's the difference between a reviewing pane and the balloons, or what they call balloon comments or edits. So here we are. I've turned on changes, and let's say I'm the editor for the Modern Times section of this particular document. So the first thing I'm going to do is, let's say I go ahead and delete this. I say, we just don't want that phrase here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and I hit delete. Now watch what happens. First thing you notice, a little link comes on here. And it says, Chris Ward, on this time, and by the way, now you know the date and the time that I deleted this on the video, for all time. Suspendise potente is gone. I deleted that. And if I need to, I can roll over here, kind of take the moving sidewalk here, my horizontal bar, and you can see over to the right, Windows, and I should say Office 2003, and especially Word 2003, will put your balloons. That's what they call these little balloons. And they put little dotted lines going, doo, 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 doo. This is where I'm referring to. This is where I deleted that information. And it tells me, and if I hold it over, it'll tell you who did it, at what time, and that kind of information. Now, the other thing we can do is obviously I could say something else like, here is a important part of the sentence and add that to my particular document here. And again, if I just roll and hold my mouse over it, it'll tell me that I inserted this particular information. So this is all good for tracking changes on this particular document so far. And let's say I want to add a comment like Modern Times. Let's say Modern Times, I don't know if that's the best way of saying that. So what I can do is come up here and I can click Insert Comment. And when I do that, it instantly highlights at the end of the last word there, and I make the comment This in case in my computer is the computer name is HAC for I think Hewlett Packard approved customer or something like that. But notice my name appears, so you know who it is. And you can change this behavior, which we'll see shortly. So we can come in here and I can say, this title is boring. Let's come up with a different one. I can spell. So just for fun, let's just say that. Hopefully you'll be a little more polite. I've had editors though that would say, you know, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, you know, which always makes you feel good. But here's my comment. And notice these bullets, or balloons I should say, are over here to the side, and you can change the formatting of that as well. So all I've done is I've gone ahead and I've made changes to this document. So I'm going to go ahead and save this document. So now those changes are now saved onto the document. And now I can come in and I can say things like, all right, I want to now adjust how this appears to everybody. Where do I do that? Well, you go to Show under Options, and here you can see your track change options, which, by the way, you can you know, come in here and say, all right, now on my insertions, do I want to use an underline? Do I want to bold it? Do I want to use a double underline? Do I want to do a strike through? How do I want to show up? Well, in this case, underline's fine. Now, what color? Now, what it'll do is it'll do it by author. It starts off with red, then it goes to blue, and then, you know, depending on how many different people come in and add this information, you'll see different colors based upon who is typing. Then it says deletions. Do you want to use strike through, or how do you want to do it? Well, we can do strike through, we can use double underline, we can use hidden, we can use little, you know, pound symbols or, you know, symbols. So strike through sounds good. By author, color. Do we want to use the formatting? Do we want to use the comment colors? I can change my colors, auto, black, turquoise, and all the colors that I have. You can usually do it by author, makes sense. Now, where do you want the change lines? Do you want them outside the border, which we have right over here, or do you want them in the left border, the right border? Where do you want this to be? So we'll just do outside border for the change lines. Here is the balloons, and here's where we can change where the track changes are from our balloons. We say use balloons in print and web layout. Always, never, only for comments and formatting. So in this case, we say always. We can say preferred width is 2.5 inches, and that's how big this one is. So if I cancel out here and scroll over, this is 2.5 inches over to the side once you leave the margin. Now I'll come back over here and show my options again. Maybe I don't want it to be 2.5 inches. Maybe I want to make it 2 inches. Okay, do you want in the right margin? Yep, left margin. And do you want to show the lines connecting to the text? This can sometimes, especially when you've got a whole bunch of editing going on, this can get real confusing with all these lines. So sometimes you might just want to say, no, I don't want to do that. Preserve the printing with balloons. Do you preserve the paper orientation, which means do you want to go force a landscape? Do you want to preserve the portrait that we have, or do you want to automatically adjust it if necessary to a landscape in order for you to see the comments, whatever you want to go. Let's say we'll preserve when we're printing with the balloons, because you can print it out and show the balloons if you want. Just kind of something to think about. So now I don't want to show the lines. I click OK. Now look, it still shows you the approximate location, but on the text you don't see the print, those little dotted lines there. The comment is now smaller. Notice I made it smaller. We got my deletion here, my insertion here. So we can do that. Now if I want to, let me come back here and show your balloons. You can also make changes here on your balloons, on always, never, and only for formatting comments. Here I'm going to go ahead and show the lines and leave the preferred width the same way. So we click OK, and now it's gone. The preferred width is still the same, but now we have our lines showing where the particular comments are, so you can track them over to where they need to be. So obviously we've got this in place, we've got the changes made, and we can go ahead and click Save, and now I can maybe send, and this is kind of cool. I can send this. I can either save it here locally, I could hit a File, Save As, and maybe go to one of my network places and save this particular file, and that way someone would be able to see it. Or I can do this, and watch this, check this out. File, send to a mail recipient, a mail recipient for review. That sounds good. Or as an attachment. You can send them to routing receipts or exchange folders. We can use it, a fax modem. I can fax this, or an internet fax service, or I can even send this to PowerPoint to be used as a presentation. So I can use the send to features here to help me with my tracking and collaboration. So let me say I want to go ahead and send it to a mail recipient as attachment. That means it sends the entire document instead of sending you an email that contains the whole, like the mail recipient for review. It'll actually contain it in the email for you to review and track changes on. I like doing it as an attachment. It's a lot easier for me. So I click on this and notice it automatically opens up whatever your email program is. It'll most likely, if you're using Office 2003, it's going to be Outlook 2003 or Word 2003. In this case, I'm sending this Modern Times, and I can say, I'll send this to maybe, I'll send it to myself, cward@cbtnuggets.com. And now I'm going to send this, and I'll say, Chris, review and return with changes. Chris. So I'm sending it to myself. All right. I didn't want to send it to Dan or James or any of the guys at CBT Nuggets because they'd be like, oh man, I got to edit this, and they'd send it back to me. That'd be interesting. So this case, we're going to go ahead and hit send. It goes ahead and sends off the file along with the information that I have on here, and then I'm able to do whatever I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that and get ready to go here. All right, and then finally, I don't know, I was thinking or doing something anywhere. So I've sent this file off to be reviewed. Now, that's great. And that means that I have the ability to get that file back and review changes and make those changes as necessary on another computer, and then I can get that sent to me as well. Now, that's one way of doing things. The other thing I can do is with collaboration is I can open up another document and edit it at the same time and then merge the changes later on if I need to. So let me go ahead and minimize this one. Go ahead and click on my start, my network places. Here's my sample files on the laptop, and there's my history of instruments outline. Hey, that one sounds familiar. So now when I double click on this one to open it up, it of course brings it up, and it's going to ask me something. It says, hey, wait a minute. My lovely wife Debbie is editing the history of instruments. It's locked for editing. Now I have a couple options here. I can open a read-only copy, I can create a local copy and merge my changes later, or I can receive notification when Debbie's done editing it. It'll actually pop up on the network going, boop, it's now done, you can do it, and get a notification. In this case, I want to create a local copy and merge my changes later. So that way I can merge the two and then decide which one we're going to do. So I click OK, and I bring down here, and I notice that Debbie has made some changes here. She added some information. Notice I got my track changes still on, and now I can see my changes here. One of them is she inserted information. Instruments are necessary for your musical enjoyment. So she inserted that line. If I scroll down, I'll notice that she deleted some information, inserted some more information. Right here you can see, and all kinds of deleted some more information, and it tells you how it was formatted, deleted, what information was deleted, and then notice this comment from Debbie on computer CW1. It says, don't forget the Korean cultures as well in this region. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I talked about the Japanese and Chinese cultures, and so whatever, made whatever change. Now, here's the thing. On this change, here's a change for the document. If I come up here to accept the change, I can accept the change or accept all changes in the document. I can go ahead and click on accept change, and now look what happened. The line went away because Debbie and I are in agreement. This is where she put in some more text. I accepted the changes. Bada bing, bada boom. It's all set up and ready to go. And this works as well when like I sent that file off to myself. And so if I get that file and open it up and make changes, I can either accept or reject the changes that come back, and that person can accept or reject changes. So it gives us the ability to collaborate together and make sure that we're all on the same page as it was to be said here. So we got our comments, we have all our things that we have here. Now, one thing that usually comes up at this point is what if I don't want to allow certain changes to my document? So let me go ahead and click Save. It says the original is still locked. Click OK to save to a different location. And then when the original copy is available, click Compare and Merge Documents to merge the changes into the original. So we click OK. We're going to call it For Merge. Notice it automatically does that. I click Save, and now I'll know this is the one I'm going to use to merge with that particular the file that I have out on the network. So let's go ahead. We're going to close this window. Go back to modern times. Let me close this window as well. Let's say I want to protect anyone from doing certain editing on this particular document. So I'm going to need to protect this document. So once I do this, I simply come up, or I should say how I do this, is under Tools. And if you don't see Protect Document, just merely expand it down until you find it where it says Protect Document. That's going to bring up your Protect Document task pane over here on your right-hand side. And here you're going to see you have formatting restrictions and you have editing restrictions. So you can use both ways of saying, you know what, you can only use a certain amount of styles on this particular document. This is really good if you like maybe use certain types of reports. And you want to make sure that nobody goes and starts adding pink, text to something that might get printed and get out there. You can limit the formatting to a certain type of style, black and white, and use these headings, use this kind of bolding or whatever it is. So that's one thing that you can do. You can select it, and then you can do the settings right here. Or you can also do editing restrictions. Allow only this type of editing in the document. And are there exceptions? You can select parts of the document and then choose users who are allowed to freely edit them. And then, of course, right now you got everyone. Find the next region, show all regions, remove all editing for things. Right now we only have that. Or I can add more users. Check this out. If I select more users, it'll say enter the username, which is simple user 1, or by domain name. You can put in, if you've got an Exchange server running in an Active Directory, of course you'll have usernames and groups, so you'll know who can do what. So that's one thing you can do. So let's go ahead and look up here though. You can see that I can do no changes, filling in forms, comments, and track changes. So which one do we want? Well, in this case, we're asking allow only this type of editing in the document. We only want the track changes to be edited, or the comments, or filling in the forms. So, or allow no changes. It's a read only. You can only open it up and say, you can only do this certain thing. So either way, it's just depending on what you're trying to do. A lot of people might only do track changes. In this case, if you click on settings though, check this out. Formatting restrictions. Limit the formatting to a selection of styles. Numbers, page numbers, article, section, balloon text. That's a recommendation. You probably don't want people adding balloon text all over documents. Email signatures, hyperlink, all these things, you prevent the ability to modify the styles and abilities. So what ones do you want to be able to use? Well, they recommend you can do all. Recommended minimum, which will only do the recommended. You can do none. None of it. No styles are currently allowed. Well, that's not good. That means you can't do hardly anything. Or you can do all. Either way. And check this out. Allow auto format to override formatting restrictions. Let's say you want to put together a table in and you've restricted certain types of styles. Well, someone wants to use a particular table format or auto format. Can they do it? Well, only if you allow them to. If you select this, it'll allow auto format to override the formatting restrictions. Or you can say, no, 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 you don't understand. I don't want them using auto format. I want them to stick with what they have, recommended minimum or whatever it is. So we click OK, and it'll say this document may contain formatting or styles that aren't allowed. Do you want to remove them? Click no in this case, and then you can say yes, start enforcing this protection. At that point, the document is protected against all of this information. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and do that, mostly because I might want to use this file for something else, and quite frankly, I wasn't careful and looked at everything that I was saying, either yes or no, that I can do. Now, as the owner of this document, I can come back in and change this at a later time if necessary. So we took a look at many different things here in our first collaboration video. Number one, we said, how do you track changes? How do you even turn on that whole reviewing capability. We saw that we can use simultaneous editing, which means I can open up a document that someone else has got open. And then we, of course, have to decide how we're going to handle that. Do we have separate ones and then they just stay separate? Or do we create a read-only copy that I can look at and at least make some comments on? Or do we go ahead and say, I'll open up one, I'll save it as a local copy, and then later on when that original document isn't being in use, I can marry the two together or merge the two together. How do we deliver these documents over the network? Using the send to, email, we have different options, and how we protect our documents from being edited in a certain way with a certain formatting or by a certain person. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.